Hello everyone, I'm Trishla Chadha, an architect and urban designer based in London. I recently completed my post-graduation in MArch Urban Design at the Bartlett School of Architecture, UCL. I have a professional experience of around 2 years across multiple scales and community-driven initiatives. My interest also lies in the field of architectural journalism, and I have around 150 plus articles and blogs published across various international digital platforms and magazines. Today, I'm going to give a brief introduction about my research, which I have been pursuing for the past 3 years since my bachelor's in architecture. My research is separate but equal, deconstructing gender dynamics and its implications for gendered inclusive design driven by urban emotions. I want to start by asking a question. Why are public spaces framed as feminine or masculine? According to current stats, around 32% of women in UK feel unsafe while walking in public spaces during the daytime, and 8 out of 10 women experience depression and anxiety due to these unsafe places in the city. In every 10 minutes, women in UK experience harassment, which makes us question the neutrality of public spaces. As a direct response to this, the research aims to honor and recognize the different groups that constitute urban spaces and how the city is retold through multiple narratives and reaffirming rights when designed for women. The main research question guiding the research is that how can architecture convey meaning and elicit urban emotions to implicate a gendered environment? I would first briefly discuss the historical context relating to the notion of feminism and related theories. The development of feminist movement is frequently portrayed as waves of change, reflecting the movement's peaks and troughs. On accounts of the evolution of feminism, the women liberation movement of the 1960s, with the guiding idea that personal is political, in trying to believe that women's personal experiences should form the starting point for understanding their circumstances, for the potential action in response to the situation. Throughout the 1970s and 80s, the emergence of feminist perspectives became a legitimate field of work in disciplines such as sociology, geography, anthropology, and political science. Most often, historical monuments tell us stories of men, power, and war. The stepwells of Gujarat in India offer a refreshing alternative to this paradigm, for they tell the tales of women, water, and life. Stepwells were the spaces where the world of women and water converged. It was a space that women could visit freely, not just to collect water, but also for socializing and recreation. Secluded below the surface and away from the male gaze, women could gather and be themselves. The United Nations Millennium Development Goals have become an organizing framework for all development work since 2000. Notably, women and gender are the main focus of two of the 8 goals. However, a closer look at specific targets and established baselines indicate that women, girls, and a gender-based lens are critical to achieving all of the goals. Some of the theories that I would like to discuss includes the Maslow's hierarchy of needs proposed by Abraham Maslow in his 1943 paper, A Theory of Human Motivation. He mentions that once a person's physiological needs are relatively satisfied, their safety needs take precedence and dominate behavior, which emphasize the need for belonging and safety in the urban environment. Similarly, the O defensible space by Oscar Newman states that a space that has territorial markers, opportunities for surveillance, and clear indications for activity and ownership. Crime prevention through environmental design is also a multidisciplinary approach to deterring criminal behavior through environmental design. These theories accentuate the need of safety, territory, and crime prevention as a key factor to facilitate the interaction of humans and the urban environment. The vectors of inequality and difference are multi-class, gender, race, culture, age, sexuality intersect in a complex matrix. Robust studies reinforce that gender inequalities in space occupation are not necessarily the consequences of normative desires such as equal or just separate, but can also be the result of the way that urban environments are structured and culturally created, implying unequal access to space. Although intentional gender segregation in public spaces is no longer practiced, many scholars claim that power imbalances are sustained and reproduced in spaces, resulting in gendered and sexualized city urban spaces. In order to establish a methodology for research, 5 fields of expertise have been identified for initial learnings: the field of women in development or and gender space and status literature, ergonomics, proxemics, and participatory design. This work intentionally elevates gender as its focus, but this is not to dismiss other factors of inequality such as ethnicity, class, ability, age, etc., that are equally important to tend to in the design work. Literature across the field reveals that gender inequality is often overlooked due to cultural norms and dominant frameworks that invisibilize gender or treat women as a special subgroup. To address this, the research first identifies approaches that help to unveil gender roles, and gender inequality in order to assist the designer in seeing these two aspects of designing for gender equality, seeing gender, and methods and tools to support process are investigated through the 5 fields of research. The Women in Development and Gender of Design field provides a well-developed lens for seeing and valuing gender that can greatly educate designers. Understanding the differences between sex and gender and the shift from WID to GAD provides an important grounding for all gender-based works. Disaggregating household data and valuing women's triple roles of reproductive, productive, and community management provides important frameworks to visualize women's roles, access, and decision making. Understanding the difference between practical versus strategic gender needs is a key distinguishing factor for the potential of gender-based design interventions. To support the research, case studies have been considered to support the factor of gender equality in built environment, comparing Indian cities like Delhi and European cities like Vienna, taking into consideration parameters such as public spaces, housing, and transportation. Austria's capital, Vienna, has a population of about 1.9 million people and is experiencing rapid urban growth. The city of Vienna, considered ranked as one of the most livable cities in the world thanks to its effective and affordable price public transportation system, substantial supply of social and non-profit oriented housing, and socially conscious approach to urban planning, has addressed gender gaps in the gender sensitive policy and urban planning since the 1990s. The 1991 exhibition, Who Owns Public Space? Women's Everyday Life in the City, necessitated a specific planning strategy for the first time in Vienna. In one of the case studies, I have studied the public space which is known as St. Johann Park in Vienna. A need to redesign this park was perceived by the city of Vienna when girls aged 10 and 12 were found using parks lesser. By focusing on their interest, gender-sensitive solutions were implemented to make them feel safer and better in these spaces. The main objective of the project were to motivate girls and young women to use the parks more often, improve safety perceptions in the park, improve elements to attract elderly and parents with little children, and have intense professional exchange of ideas during the planning phase. The gender-sensitive planning measures included football cages being converted for activities that could accommodate both the genders, multifunctional play areas, effective lighting, and good street paths for people to traverse through the space easily, and good visibility and clear-cut organization of these footpaths. One of the examples for the housing needs is is represented through the Fran Werkstatt housing in Vienna. In order to design housing to meet the needs of women, the project team sought to understand the everyday needs and patterns of women and incorporate them into every level of the design. The goals were to make housework and care work easier, encourage a sense of community, and create comfortable and safe living environments. This is the plans that were drawn for the for the social housing in Vienna. In terms of transportation, a heavily populated suburb known as Mariahilf in Austria was chosen as the site for the gender mainstreaming pilot project, which also makes use of gender sensitive design standards in 2002. District maps were created in 2001 in order to advance the project. These maps featured comprehensive data organized under the headings Networks Characteristics and Network Deficits. Both these characteristics featured information concerned the network's inadequacies such as narrow pavements, obstacles, and accidents hotspots. Also highlighted on these maps were key destinations such as schools, parks, and transit hubs. These maps were created in order to clearly show issues that politicians could understand. The other case study is Delhi, which is based in India. Delhi has experienced tremendous growth over the years, comparable to that of many other contemporary cities, as thousands of people routinely come at its doorstep in search of livelihoods. In order to live up to the reputation as a global city, the city has seen tremendous expansion in the construction of flyovers, malls, commercial, and shopping centers. The 12th Five-Year Plan of India places emphasis on enhancing women's safety, mobility, and access to public services in a variety of areas. It is accepted that gender responsive infrastructure has many advantages, and concrete recommendations are offered for resolving problems in the WASH sector and other sectors as well. As part of the city's human development study, the Institute of Human Development Delhi issued a report in 2013 titled Safety in Delhi. In sectors like urban planning and public transportation, it offered policy suggestions based on the review of significant problems which was related to the violence against women and girls, as well as other marginalized populations. United Traffic and Transportation Infrastructure Center, a multi-stakeholder urban body, conducted research in 4 vulnerable areas in Delhi in 2012 to better identify gaps in urban planning from the women's safety viewpoint. The various urban planning and public space design strategies proposed in Delhi included enhancing the database with more safety assessments which are needed to pinpoint Delhi's most unsafe neighborhoods and locations for women, and to identify the best planning and design alternatives. Promoting Eyes on the Street, inspired by Jane Jacobs by ensuring mixed land use in all recent developments, promoting and regulating activities in the informal sector, amending bylaws to ensure the removal of setbacks and boundary walls, installing transparent glass facades on large commercial buildings, and improving the accessibility and visibility from the street, landscaping, and lighting. According to safety audits, gender diversity is the single most crucial element in ensuring that women feel secure in public spaces. In addition to encouraging the employment of female vendors, hawkers, and shop owners, there should be more initiatives to actively encourage women to use public spaces, such as increasing the number of female street sellers, vendors, and store owners. The provision and management of urban infrastructure includes the attempts which are made to install street lights so that their light falls on the sidewalks. In public spaces, high mast lights should be erected, especially at key intersections. In a similar vein, it is important to keep pavements and trees trimmed so that they don't obstruct lighting onto the pavement. Provide accessible and clean and kept public restrooms, which is crucial that because these facilities are not just accessible but are also periodically inspected and maintained. Additionally, it's crucial to inspect the security measures out of the restrooms. The state provides vital public services for the homeless, including night shelters. In Delhi, there are concerns about the safety of homeless women both within and outside these night shelters. Standards to increase the safety should be taken seriously. In terms of public transport, there should be an increase in the number of hawking platforms by allowing hawkers and late night food establishments at important bus and metro stops, especially at transportation hubs. Considering options that are gender sensitive for enhancing the last mile connectivity, it is necessary to evaluate the rules enabling rickshaws and cars to assemble close to metro stations so that they may be made more organized, user friendly, and closely regulated. It is important to look on ways to increase neighborhood and community access to transit. Maintaining information at bus stops, it should be required that the name, bus, route number, and emergency hotline numbers be prominently displayed at all bus stops. The bus stops should be more active and easier to access if kiosks were built, ideally ones that were open 24/7. A major objective of this study was to increase the general understanding and importance of gender and sexuality issues that they relate to design and emotional perception. Another major objective was to analyze how inclusive a set of established urban design guidelines were in terms of gender and emotional environment. Data findings revealed gender inequalities and fear patterns, which indicated social and cultural constructs that provide gender and sexuality bias. The case studies, Vienna and Delhi, have been discussed based on effectiveness, scalability, and transferability of gender sensitive initiatives with revelation of the potential barriers. The possible parameters for the evaluation of the case studies include design guidelines such as context, accessibility, dynamics of time, social influence, safety, and the built environment. Interventions such as light, visibility, openness, walkability, physical infrastructure, landscape, and public amenities have been evaluated further. Furthermore, as shown in the Vienna and Delhi case studies, successful planning, design, and implementation of inclusive design that focus on gender as a part of the process have been successful and has led to better and more inclusive spaces and work environments. They also demonstrate that there's a connection between perceived safety and walkability of the area and ultimately people's well-being when it comes to transportation related issues. While concentrating on the case study, it is feasible to see this tangibility in small inward-looking city like Vienna, where public space affects how its inhabitants see it. The notion of gender in the city develops in accordance with its own power dynamics. The more introverted its social structure is, the more successful the urban planning is. Monitoring women issues and gender and social spatial relations, which appear as an important research core and is also prevalent in case studies like Vienna, exposes the issue as a problematic with the social and political dimensions that already exist in the city. The population of Delhi, as well as those cities that are currently undergoing rapid expansion, must consciously decide their cities will be safe for all residents as they move forward. The proposal made in this article provide the foundation of inevitable change. Nevertheless, for them to be successful, cooperation with civil society, governments, communities, and other stakeholders is vital. Thus, it is essential to undertake research from a socio-spatial perspective, especially in spaces like Vienna and Delhi, where there are societal inequalities between the sexes. The gender integrated design conclusion includes ensuring that your design team is gender diverse and is familiar with gender-based issues. It is very important to do your gender work and also study the different demographics and data which are prevalent in those areas. There should be a diversification of community represented so that the communities and the policy making bodies are gender balanced. Identify draft project goals and programs with diverse community representation, acknowledging that they will be revised based on the needs of the community. There should be engagement of the community in participatory research that emphasizes and values gender. We should look beyond immediate project scope to see the bigger, which is the gendered picture. Sex disaggregate and document all data, including conversations and observations, which is with respect to the public and the policy making bodies. Analyze all the data which is collected and revise your project goals and programs to develop design solutions that address gender inequality and evaluate it over time. It is very necessary to bring a change of paradigm considering space is not non-neutral. It determines us in a different way to women and men, not only by distinct physical experiences, but by the increasing difference due to the gender roles which make us need, use, and perceive the city in a distinct way. Thank you so much.